Sometimes in Las Vegas, you have to be lucky or good. Yesterday, both of those adjectives fit Denny Hamlin. Hey there, race fans. It's Race Day Top 5 with me, Frank 5. Las Vegas Motor Speedway, just about 20 minutes north of the biggest city in all of Nevada, where you have the famous Strip, you have all the casinos, you have the Las Vegas Sphere with events, and of course, in the fall, we've had Formula One races in the streets of Las Vegas. But this time around, it's racing on the 1.5 mile track with high bankings into turns, bumpy in 1 and 2, smooth in 3 and 4, right up against the wall. You got to push your chips forward if you want to cash in big. And this weekend, one driver was able to come on top in Vegas in what was an emotional victory. Let's talk about all that happened yesterday in Sin City. Number 1, emotional win for number 11. Denny Hamlin captured his first win of the 2026 season, winning yesterday's Pennzoil 400 at Las Vegas Motor Speedway by barely holding off Chase Elliott, William Byron, Christopher Bell, and Ty Gibbs for the victory. This win, by the way, is Denny Hamlin's 61st career win in the NASCAR Cup Series, which now puts him to 10th on the all-time win list. Originally, he was in a tie for 10th place on the all-time win list at 60 wins with NASCAR on Fox's own Kevin Harvick. Denny Hamlin yesterday breaks out of that tie with his 61st win. And what a day it was. From the beginning of the race, Denny Hamlin from the early get-go, after starting on the front row next to teammate Christopher Bell, he had a very fast race car. And a lot of people were talking in the garage area, Denny Hamlin is the guy to be. Well, in the early going of the race in the first stage, he certainly showed that. He had a car that could just pull away from the rest of the field. He towed his teammate Christopher Bell along with him. But then we got into some green flag pit stops. The 11 team normally is one of the best on pit road, and they did have some good steps yesterday, but as he got further into a long green flag run, the car suddenly became a little bit tighter and tighter and tighter. It just couldn't seem to turn in the corners, especially on the long runs, which it looked like that was an issue that they dealt with for most of the race. He ended up losing the lead and ended up falling back to third place at the end of the stage one. Then is where it all went downhill briefly for the 11 team. After everybody completed their pit stops under yellow before getting ready to start stage number 2, Denny Hamlin got caught for speeding on the pit exit, and therefore he had to drop to the tail end of the longest line, and it would have to have been an uphill battle for him to get back up there. Thankfully for him, it was no problem whatsoever. He came flying through that field to get all the way back up inside the top 10 when the second round of green flag pit stops happened in the middle of stage number 2. Hamlin was able to get back in the top 10, and before you know it, he was back in the top 5 by the end of stage number 2. I mean, that 11 team was hitting it on all cylinders yesterday, despite the setback with the speeding penalty. They got themselves back in the top 5, and then they were able to try to get up there and contend in the final stage. They were able to race hard against the likes of his teammates and Christopher Bell and some of the Hendrick cars. Hamlin was able to take the lead. But once again, when we got into a long green flag run and when it came time to green flag pit stops, Hamlin's car kept getting tighter and tighter, and it really happened a lot when he was in the middle of lap traffic. They would slow his progress down. He would start to lose a little bit of time. He wasn't happy with the handling. He lost the lead for a brief moment to William Byron through 3 and 4. Then the caution came out because Connor Zillich spun off of turn 4 after running in the back of Ricky Stenhouse Jr., who might have brake checked him a little early. That brought out the yellow and brought everybody down pit road for their final pit stops of the day because they could make it on fuel with 51 laps remaining in the event. So Hamlin's team was able to get a good stop. They came out second behind Christopher Bell, but after a brief moment racing his teammate for the lead, Hamlin was able to take the lead and drive off from the rest of the field. Or so he thought. As we got into the final 20 laps of the race, he once again had to deal with lap traffic, battling Ty Dillon and Cody Ware, who pitted after taking tires after taking one of the waiver rounds. Hamlin just couldn't seem to shake those guys, and it was slowing his progress down just a little bit to the point where it allowed Chase Elliott from behind to try to reel him in and battle for the win. With about 1 lap to go, Elliott was within half a second of Denny Hamlin. But Denny Hamlin did not look back whatsoever. He kept his eyes forward. He didn't let the pressure of the 9 from behind get the best of him, and he was able to bring it on home for his first win of the season and had a nice burnout. And it was a fitting win, honestly, for Denny Hamlin to win at this race because the last time we were here in the fall, Hamlin was victorious, and it was an emotional win for him because it allowed him to make it the championship 4, but it was an emotional time for him because it would be the last time he would win while his dad was still with him. Of course, everybody knows what an emotional past couple of months it has been for Denny Hamlin and how tough it's kind of been on him. Of course, you all remember as he, of course, won this race at Las Vegas last year in the fall, took him to the championship. He had the car to beat in that championship race at Phoenix. But again, a late race yellow for William Byron's right front tire brought everyone to pit road, and the 11 team, had a 4-tire stop, but it ultimately was not the pit stop that they needed to win the championship because Kyle Larson took 2 tires. The rest is history. Hamlin lost the championship. And to make matters worse, the month after that, there was a fire at his parents' house, which unfortunately claimed Denny's father, Dennis Hamlin. Of course, Denny knew that his dad's time on Earth was not long. It wouldn't last long because he was battling COPD. It was a really tough time for Denny Hamlin, and many questioned, did he even ever think about getting back in a race car after losing out on a championship again in heartbreaking fashion? Losing your father, who sacrificed so much to get Denny Hamlin to where he is in the Cup Series today. But Hamlin did not let that stuff really get the best of him. And of course, he also had the lawsuit stuff to deal with 2311 Racing co-owner that he is. Thankfully, it all got settled out with NASCAR and everybody's happy and all. But Denny Hamlin decided to continue forward and is still driving the 11 car this year. And you saw yesterday, obviously, I could tell he was trying to hold back tears, but he was just so happy to celebrate in the moment with the win, honoring his dad, who he said probably would look down and say, that's my boy. He had his wife, Jordan, and of course their children, his 2 daughters, and their young baby boy. And Denny's mom, Mary Lou, also was able to come up and celebrate with Denny, and you could see tears in her eyes because it was emotional for her to see her son win, the first win with her husband and his father not there. It's a very emotional time. And yes, Denny Hamlin is still the most polarizing figure in the sport. Not a lot of people like him. Of course, some of his fans do like him. But he's gained a little bit of respect, I think, from the fans after what we saw from him last year in that Vegas race. And yesterday, there was a fair amount of cheers for Denny when he celebrated the victory. So a big win for the 11 team. It's much needed, especially overcoming that speeding penalty at the end of the first stage. It dropped in the middle of the pack. He quickly recovered. And, of course, for Denny Hamlin of this chase format, this suits him perfectly because you got to be consistent. In the last couple of weeks, they've shown consistency and shown speed. The win yesterday, there's more to come for this 11 team. Maybe this could be the year, perhaps, if things go his way, that Denny Hamlin could win the championship and win it for his dad. But a big win yesterday for Denny Hamlin, number 11 team, overcoming the speeding penalty to take the checkered flag first. Number 2, solid day for Team Hendrick. Yesterday, Hendrick Motorsports put on a show and took the fight to the Toyotas and Joe Gibbs Racing and 2311 Racing yesterday. All three of the 4 cars with the main drivers had some really good days yesterday, with 3 of them honestly had a good chance of winning the race. Starting first with Chase Elliott finishing in 2nd place. His best finish, by the way, at Las Vegas in the Next Gen era. His previous best was 9th in the first race at Vegas in the Next Gen car back in 2022. The last couple of Next Gen races for Chase Elliott have been kind of a struggle for him. The last fall in the race as part of the playoffs, he had a car capable of top 5, maybe even winning, but he had a speeding penalty during pit stops that put him behind, couldn't really recover the most part. Yesterday, they put together a solid performance for the 9 team, by far their most complete race of the season from a consistency standpoint. They qualified 15th, but they got inside the top 10 quickly, got some stage points. Then they were up front contending for the lead at the start of stage number 2 with his teammates Larson, Byron, and Christopher Bell in the Joe Gibbs car, but ultimately lost some of those spots after racing hard, kind of burning his tires, fell back to 8th spot at the end of the second stage, but then he got back inside the top 5 for the final stage and stayed there pretty much the rest of the race. And then when he was able to clear Bell and Byron after the last restart, he set his sights on Denny Hamlin, and no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't really close the gap that much, even though Hamlin was having a tough time with the lap traffic and with his car being tight. Chase was in half a second on the white flag lap of trying to catch Denny Hamlin. If we had 5 more laps of this race, I think Chase Elliott could have got to Denny Hamlin because I could just see on the long runs how tight Hamlin's car was getting, especially in the corners and coming off the corners. But Elliott, unfortunately, was not able to close in on the 11 car and has to settle for 2nd place. In his interview, you could tell, he's a little bit upset to come up that short considering how good of a race car they had all day long. I mean, the pit stops on pit road, aside from a little slow stop in stage 2, were absolutely flawless. These guys gained him spots every single pit stop, especially the 3 pit stops under yellow for the stage breaks and the silage spin. Elliott's team was on their A game yesterday and gave him a chance to win. Of course, the only other time that we've seen Elliott come close to winning a race this year was the Daytona 500, where he was leading on the last lap off of turn 4 until the 2311 cars of Tyler Reddick and Riley Herbst gained up on him, and he settled up with a 4th place effort with a red race car at the checkered flag. Yesterday was their most complete race of the season. Despite coming up short, they're off to a good start consistency-wise, and it benefits them in this championship format now because it rewards consistency, and no one is more consistent in the sport than Chase Elliott. He could take a top 15 car and turn it into a top 10, maybe top 5 car. Heck, he could turn it into a race-winning car. You never know what they could throw at you. But a good performance yesterday for Elliott and the 9 team. Then his teammate William Byron with a 3rd place result. By far his best race of the year, and looked like the old William Byron. So far this year, it's been kind of, up and down for the 24 team. They had a much better effort last weekend, finishing 7th place at Phoenix Raceway. Yesterday, they were up front contending and leading a couple of laps, and actually won stage 2, getting him 10 points. So the 24 car certainly had the speed to go along with this car yesterday, especially on those long runs. And you saw he was able to pass Denny Hamlin in the long part of the first part of the final stage. He took the lead from Denny until that yellow came out for the Zillage spin. It brought them to pit road, and that's where the 24 fumbled an opportunity because I think they had a slower stop. He dropped back a couple spots, and on the restart, he just couldn't seem to run down those Gibbs cars, and ultimately got passed by his teammate Elliott. And all he could do was settle for a 3rd place effort. But that's still a good result, and looking like the old William Byron. More wins are coming in his future as far as this year. I know that for a fact. But they gave it everything they had yesterday in that 24 camp. And then the final member of the Hendrick camp that ran well yesterday was Kyle Larson, who, of course, celebrated a win Saturday in the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series after not having a race-winning car in the early part of that race. I still don't know how he won that event. But yesterday, Larson had a very good race car, and honestly was the guy early on in the race that was taking the fight to the Gibbs cars, and the one guy that many people point at in the garage series saying, if anybody could take down Joe Gibbs Racing, Kyle Larson's the guy, because he's been so good here with 3 wins, winning in 2021, fall of 2023, and then the spring of 2024. Larson knows how to get around this racetrack. He's just absolutely a master at this facility. Yesterday, he had a really good race car, especially on those long runs. Was able to battle up front for the lead with his 2 teammates in the 20 car in stage number 2. He would have the pace in the long runs, but then when he got caught in traffic, William Byron caught him and passed him for the stage win. And Larson was still in the top 5, but then by the time we got to the final stage, the 5 car seemed to lose the handle on leading the race for a good part of that final stage, and just could settle in for like 5th, 6th for the long runs. And then the last restart, he was just stuck in traffic, couldn't really go anywhere. And at the end of the day, he settles for a 7th place effort. But still a good result for Larson and the number 5 team. They've got a few more wins coming as well. And yesterday was a big challenge as well for not just the Hendrick cars, but for all the cars of Chevrolet, because this manufacturer, of course, has a brand new body on all the Chevy cars this year with a little bit of a flatter front nose, and this was going to be one of the big challenges to see where the Chevrolet team stacked with the new body nose. Well, some of them have some work to do. Obviously, Richard Childress Racing, as hit or miss. Kyle Busch struggled big time yesterday. Austin Dillon, though, finished a decent 12th. Spire Motorsports was okay, but not great. I mean, you have Daniel Suarez finishing in the top 20. Trackhouse Racing, they struggled for the most part with, Rochester finished 17th. By the way, Chastain and Suarez had a little bit of a beef on pit road after the race, even on the cool-down lap, and they had to have a PR rep come in and just separate both of them. But not sure what's going on, but both of them have had kind of a weird relationship, especially when it came to their time at Trackhouse Racing the last couple of years. Of course, Suarez now Aspire, so I don't know what's going on there. But yesterday, a lot of the Chevrolet teams didn't really do well. The only team that did, minus the 48 car that was driven by Justin Allgaier this week in place of Alex Bowman. Allgaier had 2 speeding penalties, which really put him out of contention of having a good result. The 3 other Hendrick cars yesterday showed up with this body, and that means that the other Chevy teams have some work to do, but some guys already starting to figure out the body and see what it could do at these other 1.5 to 2 mile tracks going up, as well as other size racetracks. So there's still some work to do for Team Chevrolet, but Team Hendrick yesterday, Elliott, Byron, Larson, executed perfectly yesterday. Number 3, another big solid day for Gibbs Racing. Aside from Denny Hamlin winning the race, the rest of Joe Gibbs Racing in general had a good performance day out of all the race cars. Well, one of them actually had to recover from adversity, was able to do that. Starting off with Christopher Bell finishing in 4th spot yesterday. He started on the pole, and a lot of people were pointing at him in the garage area thinking he's a guy that could win this race. And of course, he's still looking for his first win when it comes to winning a race after starting on the pole. He's never won a race when he started on the pole so far in his Cup tenure. And unfortunately, that continues on until next week, unless he sits on the pole and wins next week's race. Bell had a good car yesterday as well. He led the first lap, lost it to Denny Hamlin, but still kept touch with him until he had those pit stops, and then Bell was able to actually take the lead after all the pit stops cycled through and won the stage. Actually, he had a moment where he nearly had to brake check when Denny Hamlin was coming onto pit road in first stage, and Bell had to lose a little bit of time, especially when he pitted the following lap. He lost the lead, but it was able to catch back up and take the lead and win that stage. Then he had the battle with the 3 Hendrick cars in stage 2 and pretty much stayed top 5 for a lot of the race yesterday. But it just seemed like maybe the grip that they had on the rest of the field to try to win seemed to kind of go out the door at the end of stage number 2 and had to settle for a 3rd, 4th, 5th place car for a lot of that last stage yesterday. But still, a great job by Christopher Bell and the 20 team. Then we got Ty Gibbs, 3 consecutive weeks, top 5 finishes, gaining momentum, gaining consistency. And the 54 car had a good car yesterday. Now, like Denny Hamlin, Ty Gibbs also got caught for speeding on pit road, and it was during the stop at the end of stage 1 where everybody pitted before we got ready to start stage number 2. Gibbs had to join Hamlin at the rears, and it took him a while to kind of get back in the top 10. He got back to the top 15 at the end of stage 2. Then we get into the final stage. He's back in the top 10, and he continues to press forward and was able to get a 5th place result out of yesterday's race. More consistent races for Ty Gibbs. It's what they're hoping to see and what a lot of his fans want to see. More consistency, possibly getting closer and closer to his first career win. And then we go to the final member of Joe Gibbs Racing and Chase Briscoe. They had an uphill battle on their hands yesterday. He was running top 15 a lot of stage number 1, and then when we had the pit stops in stage 1 under green, Briscoe got nabbed for speeding on pit road and thus had to serve a pass-through penalty, trapped him a lap down, and it took him a long time to try to get back on the lead lap. He was still battling with a lot of these other guys. We had a lot of long green flag runs in stage number 2 and early stage 3 that it looked like Briscoe was never going to be able to get back in the lead lap until the Zillage spin, because the moment the yellow came out, Briscoe was actually marked as the first car 1 lap down, which got him back on the lead lap. And he came charging through the pack. That car was really, really good for him yesterday. And he was able to rally and get back in the top 10 and finish in 8th spot. Now, I know Briscoe fans definitely want to see more good results out of him, but this was a good step in the right direction because aside from this runner-up finish earlier this year in Atlanta, Briscoe's finished outside the top 30 in 3 of the first 4 races. Right to Daytona, had problems with the transaxle, I believe it was, at Coda, and then last week, while running in the top 5, gets a little bit too high, maybe a tire down or something happened in the 19 car. He went high wide and into the outside wall, knocking him out of the race and put him in a bad spot in the points. Now, right now, he's still deep in the points at 26 in the standings, but a good comeback yesterday from a speeding penalty to get a top 10, get some of those points back, and hopefully more good results in the next couple of races. Briscoe will keep climbing the ladder and getting closer to getting back into the top 16, and hopefully he'll be back above it. And of course, we're going to Darlington next week where he won there last year in the fall, so I fully expect that 19 car to be up front next week. But all in all, Denny Hamlin won yesterday, but the rest of the Gibbs camp had a phenomenal day. Number 4, up and down day for the blue oval dark Mustangs. Yesterday, while we saw the Toyotas and the Chevrolets of Hendrick Motorsports go at it, the one manufacturer that didn't really have a chance and didn't really have a good time trying to compete for the win yesterday was the Ford camp. The one team that puzzled me as to why they weren't even factors for the most part yesterday was Team Penske. Now, Ryan Blaney qualified up at the front and ran in the top 10 for a lot of the race, and it looked like he was going to finish there. But when the Ziller spin happened, Ryan Blaney actually pitted a lap prior before that and got trapped a lap down. The same thing also happened to his teammate, Austin Cindric, who started 31st, but he came roaring through the field and got in the top 10 at one point. It looked like he had a car that could finish there too, but he also got caught by the caution flag, so both of them had to take the wave around to get back in the lead lap. But unfortunately, neither of them could work their way through the pack and get back up there to where they were running for a good part of the race. So Ryan Blaney had to settle for 16th. Austin Cindric finished in 19th, which was, by the way, his first top 20 of the year. Yeah, that's how out of a start it's been for the Duke team. And Joey Logano yesterday was just quiet. Not great, but certainly not bad. Ended up finishing in 15th spot. The 1-4 team that actually showed up and did a great job yesterday was Roush Fenway Keselowski Racing, RFK. They had 3 of their cars finished in the top 11 spots. A really good effort. Chris Buescher was the highest finisher of the RFK cars, finishing in 6th place. Really good effort. And at times in the final run of the checkered flag, he could have finished inside the top 5, but ultimately got passed by the 54 late. But still, a 6th place finish, nothing to sneeze about. And he was just steady Eddie most of the race. Not really talking about Buescher a lot, but he was calm, collected, consistent, and just ran the top 10 pretty much the entire day yesterday. He had a good race car under them. He's kind of steady Eddie like, the Labonte brothers, Bobby and Terry, who Chris idolized growing up, and of course him being from Corpus Christi, Texas as well. He had a good effort yesterday. 6th place, his best finish of the season. And consistent results like this and many more races benefits people like Chris Buescher. So great job by him. Then his teammate and co-owner, Brad Keselowski, with a 10th place result yesterday. A really good effort. He had work cut out for him to try to get up there too, because he qualified in 28th spot. And as we got further in the long runs, he kept passing a couple of guys, making progress in the number 6 car, and they got themselves inside the top 15 for the middle part of stage 2 and stayed there all the way to the very end until he cracked the top 10 at the checkered flag, finishing in 10th spot. A great effort for Brad Keselowski. Compared to where they were last year at the start of the season, not having good results, they've had some better results so far this year. They had the top 5 in the Daytona 500, had a good, decent run at Atlanta, finished top 20. COTA, they were good considering it was a challenge for him, especially because he's still dealing with the injury that he had in the offseason last year when he slipped and fell on ice, and it hurt him really, really, really bad. And then he was able to handle that race, had an okay but quiet day last week at Phoenix. Yesterday, a nice top 10 effort for Brad Keselowski. They're off to a better start this year than they were a year ago. However, I would like to see more effort out of this 6 car when it comes to Saturday, particularly when it comes to qualifying. If they could qualify better, my oh my, they could run in the top 10, heck, top 5 all day long. There's speed in these RFK cars, but Brad Keselowski, if he wants better results and maybe chance of winning races, they got to qualify better, because with the speeds in those cars, they could stay in the top 5, top 10 all day with no incident. They got a good shot, but they got to qualify better. You can't afford to count on fast car and long runs and other guys having bad handling cars on long runs to play in your hand and work your way forward. You got to be further up the grade if you want better results on a consistent basis and maybe a chance of winning. But a good job by Brad yesterday. And the final member, Ryan Preece, 11th place, but he also was in the top 10 for a lot of yesterday. Just think he missed the handling a little bit in that last run to get him a top 10, but 11th place, still a great effort. On a day where the Fords didn't really show a lot, RFK Racing was able to make up for it. And number 5, the racing at Las Vegas yesterday was good. Solid, good racing. Nothing totally over the top, aside from, again, those 3 Hendrick cars and Christopher Bell racing hard for the lead at the beginning of stage number 2, racing like Air Force Thunderbirds in formation. That was so much fun to watch them go at it for 3 to 4 laps. Unbelievable racing. And the rest of the racing, the restarts are fun here when they get 3 wide for a couple laps. You can see them running high, middle, low, and everything. It was, not the most entertaining, like, oh my gosh, story-dropping Las Vegas race. It was just a calm, consistent race. But after what we saw last weekend with the increased horsepower on short tracks, especially with Phoenix Racing, seeing these guys, having tire fall off, managing their tires, and a lot of comers and goers for the time being, maybe we could increase the horsepower perhaps at these bigger intermediate tracks in the near future, perhaps. I mean, it could be time for maybe doing that, and also maybe eliminating the rear diffuser at the lower part of the car could also perhaps maybe putting on a really good show for the race fans and everything. Yes, the next-gen car has made intermediates better, but I also feel like that maybe Las Vegas at times looks fun to watch, but at other times kind of looks a little bit stale, and we want to change that. So maybe in the near future, perhaps next year, NASCAR will give it some thought and maybe increase the horsepower, get rid of the rear diffuser on the car. Again, these are just my opinions. It's all on NASCAR to make a decision about what they want to do. But, I mean, yesterday was just a good race. Not the most entertaining, but certainly a good race nonetheless. So maybe we have some increased horsepower in these intermediates in the near future, and maybe get rid of the rear diffuser. But once again, it's on NASCAR to decide about whether or not they want to go that direction. Now we're off to the Lady in Black, Darlington Raceway, the track too tough to tame, and that race will feature the 750 package where we will have increased horsepower, and I'm sure on a track where you need to race the racetrack and manage your tires. This will be something to watch next week. The last time we were there in the fall, it was Chase Briscoe who dominated the race and was able to hold off Tyler Reddick and the rest of those guys to get his second win in the Southern 500. Of course, it's the Goodyear 400 this weekend, where it's throwback weekend as well. Got a couple teams honoring the past history. All the RFK cars, once again, honoring Greg Biffle, which I love. It brings a tear to my eye. We're going to see who can tame the Lady in Black next week. Managing the racetrack, managing your tires, race the racetrack. You do all those things right, you could be on top. So could Denny Hamlin, who won there a year ago, back it up? Or will William Byron, who dominated last year's race in the spring but didn't close the deal, get a little payback? We'll find out, and we'll see who brings their best at the Track Too Tough to Tame next week. But I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your week and enjoy St. Patrick's Day tomorrow, and stay safe out there, especially if you're traveling and all after drinking. So I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your week. Subscribe, like, and congrats to Denny Hamlin, the 11 team, on their impressive win yesterday at Las Vegas. Have a great week, everybody. Let's go racing!